Welcome to the Kickstart Your Edge Play to Win Leadership Podcast,
where we've flipped the script with our groundbreaking modus operandi to bring you real, relevant, and relatable tactics and techniques to master your own play to win mindset.
Talk about a superpower. It's time to iron your cape.
What we know for sure is what got you here won't get you there.
You can't see the spinach in your own teeth.
And finally, hang on, because this one is really deep. Once you realize that you are the traffic, everything makes complete and unadulterated sense.
Welcome to The Edge, where playing not to lose is not an option. Hey, Karen.
What, Jen?
I totally want to talk about your succession of emails that you've received recently that has been the grand reveal of what's happening in corporate.
I thought when you just said Succession, I thought you were going to say you wanted to talk about that show, Succession.
No, that was a very good show, though. That was a do-over show. Started it and was kind of like, I don't know. Took a few-year break, then became obsessed.
Pretty much, yes, obsessed. Okay, so here's the thing, and I think that this is just another thing that, I don't know, it's just glaring information for me. And sometimes I'm thinking about why do things have to be so hard? So I get this one email from Gallup because I love Gallup. And the title of it is something along the lines of it, like the US engagement hits an 11-year low. And then I have another email like right behind that from another email that I subscribe to. And that is there's silent treatment between Gen Zers and boomers. Now, if you just look at the two of them, and again, they were right one on top of the other in my inbox. And if you just look at that, it makes complete, what, Jen? And insanely, utterly perfect freaking sense that there's low engagement. If there's silent treatment between Gen Zers and boomers, then where's the engagement going to be? So I don't know. It just seems to me, well, let's start. I know you're going to be surprised by this, but let's start communicating better, right? That I would say communicating better. And I think that that's what this whole thing has to do with. How do we communicate better? And how do we bridge the gap with the silent treatment between Gen Zers and boomers? And I think for the next 2 weeks, Jen, we should explore both of these sides with the Gallup email. And then we'll talk a little bit, obviously, about the other one as well.
I love it. So it's interesting. The Gallup, when they say it hits an 11-year-old, they are talking about 4.8 million fewer U.S. employees are engaged in early 2024. So engagement has decreased by 4.8 million, right? That's huge when you think about it. And there's a whole bunch of reasons, obviously, that could be true. And you take communication and you also, they're talking about direct communication, right? So being able to speak directly from a Gen Zer to a baby boomer and how that doesn't happen anymore. And it's pretty interesting because part of the low engagement is the return to work policy, right? And the way that companies are handling that. So companies are saying, hey, we want people to return to work. We're going to make it mandatory. Some people it's full-time. Some people it's 4 days a week. Some days it's a couple of days a week to increase communication. But then when they're in the office, they're not communicating. So it's kind of interesting to see how the reason for saying this is what we need, but not making sure that this is what's happening.
Yeah. And part of this survey was, the Gallup survey was not only are they not engaged, but what happens with the non-engagement? It's they're detached from their employers. There's less role clarity, lower satisfaction with the overall organization, and less connection to their company's mission and purpose. And I think that has a big part to do with everything. And kind of like the cherry on top is employees are also less likely to feel that somebody at work cares about them, right? And if you think of, the workforce, we have, and I'm going to date myself here because I'm going to sound a little bit old, but the bulk of the workforce and a lot of the people that we work with are, in that whole, area of, of Gen Z the Gen Z is filling the workplace. And those are the people that really need to know that somebody cares about them. So how come we're not just saying, hey, you matter? We value what you're doing, but everybody's about churn and burn in a weird kind of way. And people, again, like you said earlier, Jen, they're not talking to each other, but I think that they're not talking about what's truly important, about mission, purpose, and that somebody really, truly cares about them.
Yeah, it all comes down to two questions. Why do we matter and why do I matter? So if you think about it, Karen and I work with organizations all across the world. And we worked with high level in the organizations, and sometimes we work with first time managers. So primarily, we really like the C-suite and being able to affect change from the top down. It's interesting to see how often, or shall I say, lack thereof, how not often, it sounded funny, how not often mission, purpose, vision, and values actually come to play. Of those four, values might be spoken the most.
Yeah.
But in the why do we exist? Why do we matter? How are we changing the world? What can we rally around? Those conversations are not a part of the everyday. And I think that really creates a disconnect because people want to know, what are we working towards? It can't all be about hitting a number just to make shareholders happy or just to make owners happy. It's really about how can we collectively leave the world in a better place somehow. That's what rallies people around. When you have that, it makes the motivation to hit the numbers a little stronger. And so I think that's interesting, Kara, because it is really important about why are we even coming together on a daily basis? And why am I important in that whole process of achieving that goal?
Yeah, and they can't, and then the work that we do is just so important because it's about the culture. And if you're not, as a leader, if you're not consciously creating the culture that you want, whether it's on your team, whether it's the overall big picture, like you were just talking about the C-suite, it doesn't matter if you're not actively putting a stake in the ground and creating a culture that you want to have as the environment, it's going to happen by default. And then you're sitting there and going, wait a minute, why aren't people engaged? Why don't we know how to do these meetings? How come feedback isn't happening? All these things that don't work because you need to work them first. They're like culture's like a muscle, right? You need to build it, you need to work on it. And if you don't, what happens to your muscles, Jen? They go away. It's atrophy. So it's funny because I've never thought of culture as a muscle before until just now, but it makes total sense, right? You have all these components that you can include in the culture. And we do that. Like we have a culture canvas that we can work with organizations and with teams. And there's specific components to that. And if you don't work on each one, you're not going to truly connect to the center of that culture, which is the mission, the purpose, and why they're doing the work that they do. Think about, going to work out at the gym. You're not just going to go to the gym and work your right bicep, right? And expect everything to be great. You need to go to the gym and work your full body. Granted, you might have some things that come a little easier, some things you might want to do a little bit more, but you still have to work on your whole body. And that's just like what the whole culture is. You need to work on all the components that encompass the culture for it to be successful.
Yeah, it's interesting, Kara, as we're coming to an end on this particular episode. I know that we have a wide variety of people who listen to our podcast, right? So we have leaders and organizations, we have people who own their own business, etc. But
We,
the
we,
question
we, we have my mom.
we do have your mom. Hi, Loretta. So that's so true. But it's so great. So I'll even bring it from a mom all the way into the C-suite, right? So part of it is you are responsible for the culture that is there for you create, what you focus on, how you talk to one another, how you engage people. And it's really important to be able to say, am I contributing to a culture that has me doing my best work in this world, whatever that work is? Have I created an environment where I want to show up every single day? So, a lot of times people can sit back and say, well, when they fix the culture, the question for you is how can you start contributing to the culture that you want to create in various different ways? Because work is not going away and we work a lot, right? So the amount of time that we dedicate to the work that we do, it's how do you create an environment that has you wanting to really contribute at a high level and be really engaged in what you're doing. On that note, Karen, it's a wrap.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Kickstart Your Edge Play to Win Leadership Podcast.
Craving more? Of course you are.
Check out our website at kickstartyouredge.com,
where we fire you up, fan the flames of your competitive edge culture, and ignite your tenacious pursuit of an all-out play-to-win mindset.